right, there we go. Looks like we're live now. For some reason, Facebook was not cooperating and was not letting me start up right at 9. I'm going to go grab my water. I'll be right back. All right. Saturday Night Live. A different kind of Saturday Night Live. So, hey Conrad, how you doing? First to arrive, apparently. Everyone's running a little bit late tonight, so we're going to take a minute. I'm not in a rush. Hello, Todd. Play with this mic placement a little bit. All right. Audio sound okay, guys? It's always different when I'm attaching it to a fleece. Hello, Nick. Hi, Kyle. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Please do, if you're a holster maker, obviously the usual applies. Please post up your company name so I can more easily keep track of who's who. Please like the feed and share the feed. We're doing something a little bit different tonight. I'm giving away a mold. It's not showing up very well. This is the 1911 5-inch railed HTPE mold. I have one that has a very, very tiny cosmetic blem. And so if you're here watching the feed tonight and you would like to get your hands on this, share the feed. And I will go through the list of people who shared the feed at the end tonight and pick a name out of a hat and then contact you for your address and send you a free mold. So, if you don't already have one, this is the 1911 5-inch railed mold from Pistol Forms. This was my first tester. I got there's a little chip of plastic there at the back corner of the slide. This white really does not show up well in the video. Anyway, free 1911 mold drawing if you share the feed. So, share the feed. Hi, Tom Kelly. I was just working on your stuff. I think we're good on the G17 and G34 molds, Tom. I moved that blocking around, and I think we're going to have plenty of room for the RMR cut. So as soon as this broadcast is done, I will be putting those molds on the mill, cutting new copies, and then testing them. For those of you who are just joining up, if you share the feed, you'll be entered into a little drawing to get a free 1911 railed 5-inch mold. Yeah, Conrad, you're in the running for this mold. You shared the feed. If you win, I'll draw again. Conrad is not allowed to win. So, if you, I will after I'm done with the feed and mill those molds, Tom. So, tonight's topic is modularity. Hey, Michael, thank you for coming by. And so, I don't have a tool tip tonight because modularity involves this tool. What is modularity? Let's start with the definition. So modularity is using independent or standardized pieces that assemble together into a more complex structure. It's a basic definition of it. We have modularity in all kinds of places in things we use. Here's a really straightforward, simple example. Hi, Tony Katner. These are a modular system. Okay? Magnetic bit holder with a number 2 Phillips. I got a countersink with the same shank on it, number 2 Phillips without the mag holder with a number 2 square drive, Torx drive, number 3 Phillips. These are all using the same shank system, and so they are interchangeable in this guy. Okay. Now I know a lot of you have screwdriver sets where you have several different sizes of screwdrivers. You got some Phillips, you got some flatheads, you might have some Torx, you might have some square drives, a variety of things. But you'll also have screwdrivers that have an interchangeable tip just like these ones. The reason for this is if I'm going to invest the time and money to design a system as complex as this little guy, I need to be able to change the tip. If this were a fixed single tip and I had to buy a new one of these tools, if I wanted to change from flathead to Phillips, the whole system wouldn't work, it wouldn't be affordable, nobody would use it. So Modularity is commonplace across all kinds of devices, all kinds of tools, all kinds of things. But not all modularity is good, and I think in the tactical and the firearms community, modular has become a buzzword. And anytime something becomes a buzzword, marketers use it and people eat it up without understanding what it means, why it is that way, and whether they even need it. So here's an example of a system that's not modular. Okay, just to show you this is clear. This is a G17 with a Trijicon RMR milled into the slide. You could take this RMR out and put in a different RMR, but this is a hard milled pocket. You can't put in a delta point, you can't put in a vortex, you can't put in any other RMS on the market. It's specific to this one. There are some systems like the Unity Tactical Atom Slide system that are modular, that uses an interchangeable plate where the plate indexes into the slide, but the plate can be purchased in different configurations for different optics. Some people really like modularity and look for it as a feature in things they buy. Some people are indifferent to it, and some people don't like it. So let's get into the reasons why modularity is good. Here are some of the reasons why a modular system, modularity is good. Modularity is good when it increases the utility of your part. Modularity, if it gives you new ways of using the tool, new applications for the tool, or increases your ability to use the tool quickly and effectively, modularity is good. An example is this impact driver. If it wasn't modular, if I had to disassemble the tool and take apart some complex assembly in order to change out the tip, that would be horrible. It would be just a disaster on the job site. It would be a pain in the neck in the shop. Having a modular system where all kinds of different companies all have an accepted standard dimension on this size shank with that little ring in it, ring cut in it, so that it can be used in this kind of tool with that kind of collar, that makes that benefits everybody in the space. So whether you're buying a Milwaukee, whether you're buying a Bosch, a Makita, a Metabo, whatever brand of drill you're buying, if it uses that standard system, tooling, drills, drivers from any other company will use the same tooling, interchangeable. Proprietary systems in tooling and in firearms are often a double-edged sword. This is why things like M-LOK and why KeyMod and 1913 Picatinny rail are so widely adopted in the firearms community. If every single gun company had their own proprietary mounting system, it would be awful. Some companies do have kind of proprietary stuff. Some companies are worse about proprietary stuff than others. Proprietary things are a pain. They're hard to source parts for. Stuff tends to be more expensive. And this is one of the other reasons why modularity is good. Modularity is good when it allows you to tap a new economy of scale. If I've got part A and part B, and they're 95% common between them, but there's a 5% difference. Like there's some key feature or piece that's different from one to the other. If it's possible to make the base units of A and B identical, and then have the different A part and the different B part be modules that interface with the main unit, then I can design one single central unit and then only have to tool up those other two little parts. And I get a much greater economy of scale, and I can bring the parts to market at a lower price, do it much more efficiently. An example that I'm working on currently of a modular system is my little wing system, which is, don't ask when it's going to be done, still in development. So the RCS VG2 Claw works really well. I'm not seeing any comments. I'm not sure if people aren't, hang on. I had an alert on my screen that was blocking stuff up. If you're still here, post a comment so I can see if my comment feed is working. Hopefully it is. The RCS VG2 claws are right or left-handed. They're not reversible, they're not symmetrical, they're not ambi. And so I've developed a little wing claw system that is adjustable for height, and it's reversible for right or left-handed, and it's modular. And I think that's a major advantage because it allows the end user. Yes, comments are working now. Hey, Jim Gedville, Iron Wolf Holsters in the house. Good. Okay, comments are still working on my end. I wasn't sure if it froze up. So the reason I wanted a modular system for that was because I wanted to give users the option to adjust the part on their own. That's a double-edged sword. One of the downsides of modularity is that it gives the user the ability to adjust and change the part on their own. Depending on the user, that can be great or horrible. Modularity is good when it reduces redundancies. If one piece can be used in multiple assemblies or multiple places or used in multiple ways in a single assembly, then that saves hassle. Okay? This is why, as much as possible, like across car manufacturers, I was talking to John Hautman about this because he used to be a mechanic. Like there were certain brands of cars where all the bolts in the engine compartment would be like 10 millimeter, 11 millimeter, 13 millimeter, 17 millimeter. There were a few standard sizes that were used everywhere. They didn't always try to use the smallest possible fastener. They wanted to keep the number of different types of fasteners to a minimum. And so they designed their parts around using a narrower range of fasteners. Like if you put together a holster, and because of the way you designed it, it used one type of screw post. You know, say you used like 632 screw posts to attach the soft loops, and you used 832 screw posts to attach the eidolon claw, and then you used a 1024 T-nut to do the adjustable retention. So you've got 3 different sizes of screws in different lengths with different fasteners on the backside. Like you've just greatly increased the complexity. Where if you could design around one fastener set, doing all those jobs and adjusting the design of your part so that that single fastener set works in each place, you're reducing redundancy. Modular components can also do the same thing. Modularity is good when it allows in-field repairs. If you have a modular system and one part of it breaks and all you need to do is remove that module and put another one in, that's better than if the entire system is one unified, locked together, welded whole, and the only way to repair it is to intensively, is to really disassemble it or just replace it entire. And so modularity for the purpose of facilitating repair and replacement is often good. Here's where modularity is bad. Modularity can introduce needless complexity. It can introduce features that nobody needs and few people want. I read a fascinating article years ago about camera design, talking about SLR cameras, single lens reflex, and DSLRs, and how especially in DSLRs, the rate at which the cameras are becoming obsolete is greatly accelerated over traditional film SLRs. And that in every new generation, people are always going for more megapixels, more quick-set light modes, more user-adjustable features, more save options, more file type options. In every way, the camera manufacturers are treating it as though more features is always better. Well, I've got a fairly new DSLR, and it drives me crazy because there are so many options, so many features, that it becomes impenetrable. The menus are really hard to work through. It's hard to know how to do the thing you want to do. And every minute I spend putzing around with, a scroll wheel and push buttons and a touch screen, that's time I'm spending not taking pictures. That defeats the whole purpose. So if you have a modular system, and the modular system, the modularity of it, makes the whole system more complex or makes it less strong, the modularity is bad. Quick plug, if you're here watching, I'm giving away a Pistol Forms 1911 5-inch railed HDPE mold. Doesn't show up well in the light. There you go. A railed 1911 5-inch HDPE mold if you share the feed tonight. So if you're here watching, please like the feed and share the feed. I will go through at the end of the video, pull the names of all the people who shared this, and then draw a name to send a free mold. So, if you're here watching and you want the 1911 mold, share the feed. Thank you. Also, if you're a Kydex company and you've joined up and have not yet posted your company name, please post your company name in the comments so I can more easily keep track of who is which company. So if it increases the chance for user error, that's bad. So good modularity is usually designed in such a way that the designer anticipated the ways in which the user would misassemble the piece, and then creates it in such a way that prevents improper assembly. This can be done by using keyed slots or asymmetrical shapes where you can only fasten it up in a certain orientation and incorrect mounting is prevented by the shape of the things. They only interlock a certain way. Parts are keyed together. That's good modularity. That's good design. We want to, as much as possible, prevent our users from assembling the part incorrectly. Hello, Nick. Blade Riggs is here. Thank you for stopping by. We don't want to give people opportunities to create problems if we can avoid it. If the design to function, if it's unavoidable that some user misassembly is possible, then I guess you either decide whether or not you want to make it modular. Maybe the risk of misassembly, the cost of it is so high that the modularity isn't worth the risk of somebody misassembling it. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Try to think of a good example of this. Anytime you're dealing with something that could be dangerous, like if you were putting together something that could blow up, munitions of some kind. You want components to be set up in such a way that it's difficult to assemble them incorrectly. You don't want things to be able to be put together the wrong way. An example of something put together the wrong way that I saw months ago, I saw a video on one of the Kydex forums on Facebook of a guy messing around with a VG2 claw. He had just gotten a couple of them. He had one of the RCS tuckable overhooks, and he did not have the right hardware. He had taken a flathead screw, which has a tapered bottom, and is designed to be used either in a countersunk hole or with a finish washer, and he'd put it straight through the face of the overhook, which has a flat face and vertical sides in the slots. Glock extractor spring can be assembled incorrectly and results in ejection issues, says Tom. So I would say Glock missed the boat on that, if it was possible to design it in such a way that it couldn't be assembled incorrectly. This was a big deal, I think, with the R51 pistol. It was possible, very easy, to assemble it in a way that would render the gun inoperable. That's a big problem. You don't want things to be easy to mess up. You want to make them as difficult to mess up as possible. You want parts to be asymmetrical and only go together certain ways. But in the case of this holster maker who was experimenting with the VG2 wing, he obviously had not paid attention to pictures of other holsters that used it and seen what kind of fastener sets they used. You can assemble it. It was designed to be assembled with the screw post on the face of the holster, with the screw post on the front going down through the overhook and then through the VG2 wing, with an oval head screw coming in from the backside where the screw is bottoming out on an eyelet on the holster on the backside and pulling the claw and the overhook tight on the front of the holster. If you just take a flathead screw and you torque it down on a plastic part like that overhook, it's going to deform the part and pull through, or it's going to wedge the part and crack the part. Improper user assembly is a big deal. And oftentimes the people who design something have a very difficult time anticipating the ways in which the end users will incorrectly assemble it. Yeah, let me show off those tool paths one more time. I like the tool paths on it. Look at that. Shiny, shiny. If you can see, there's a little red mark right up here. Yeah, right there. A little piece of plastic chipped out at the edge. That's why this one's blembed out. Everything else about it's just great. So, if you just joined, I'm giving this away to drawing from those who share the feed. So if you want the 1911 mold, share the feed, and I'll pull a name at the end of the feed and let you know who won the prize. Other ways that modularity can be bad. Modularity can be more difficult and complex to design. So if you're a holster maker and you want to design a modular rig, say you want to design an outside the waistband taco style holster that can be used for duty carry or competition, and you want it to be compatible with mounting accessories from Blackhawk, from Blade Tech, from SS Precision, from Safariland, from G-Code, and from a couple of other like weirdo European manufacturers. Who knows? If you want to design a piece that plays nice with all those systems, it's going to be more difficult and time-consuming to design. That's just reality. The more ambitious the part is, the more ambitious the design is, the more you shoot for the stars with the modularity. This thing can do everything. It can be left-handed, right-handed, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, on a drop leg, on a shoulder harness, under the shoulder, on Maui, to your helmet, clip it to the fore end of your rifle. You know, if you want to do all those things, that's going to be a stupid complex system, or it's never going to work well. And if it is a stupid complex system, it's probably never going to work well. Chris Johnson just joined. Chris Johnson, if you share the feed, you'll be entered in the drawing to win this 1911 5-inch railed mold from pistolforms.com. So share the feed. But the biggest thing that I'm thinking about with modularity recently is I see a lot of things marketed in the firearms community, and modularity is just becoming buzz. That the system is automatic. Everyone believes the system is automatically more functional and more user-friendly the more modular it is. And I do not agree. I think in certain cases, modular is a great goal. Modularity can have significant benefits. As far as holster design goes, though, I'm a big believer in simplicity. And what I mean by that is I want the user to have to fuss around with the holster as little as possible. I don't want the user having tons of extra parts to deal with and lots of adjustments to make. If it was a big, complicated, adjustable holster system, I'd be very confident adjusting it. And I would adjust it accurately and quickly because I would have adjusted hundreds of them, thousands of them. It would be my system. I would have designed it. But the end user is never going to be able to work with it the same way I do. They're not going to have the practice with it that I do. Hey, Aaron, Cascadia Kydex. And so in my holster designs, I generally try to decrease complexity as much as possible. I don't offer the VG2 wing on any of my holsters. Mine are compatible with the VG2. And modularity doesn't necessarily mean that I have to offer all the features, but I do pay attention to what's out there that other users might want to put on the holster. And if possible, I design my things to be compatible with them. Unless that compatibility would compromise the function I'm really going for. So I use soft loops, and I don't use a standardized spacing for my soft loops. My soft loops are not 1 inch apart. My soft loops are not set up with blocking that allows the loops to be removed and a DIY quick clip or a foamy or anything else to be put on. I wanted the soft loops as far apart as possible to get the maximum amount of stability out of them, and also to allow a belt loop on the pants to drop between them and still have some side-to-side adjustment on the belt. That means that my holsters are soft loop only, period. Some of my holster designs have additional blocking for tuckable accessories. You can put a strut with a loop or an overhook on them, but I don't sell overhooks. I don't stock overhooks, aside from samples I keep to make sure that my users, the people who I'm designing molds for, send me hardware that they want to use so I can make sure that their mold design will fit the hardware appropriately. And so whenever I can increase the number of attachments and systems that my holster plays nice with without compromising the base design function of my holster, I'm all for that. But I'm not down with modularity for the sake of modularity. Currently, I don't offer anything that interfaces with any G-code RTI software. I don't currently offer anything that integrates with any duty drops, duty offsets from BladeTech or from Safariland. I don't offer anything that plays nice with the Ulticlip. I could try to make a holster that could use every attachment under the sun. But 90% of my users are at most going to try one or two of the options, and they're probably not going to change them around that often. And in the meantime, I will have complicated the holster and punched a whole bunch more holes in it and made it lumpier and bumpier and less comfortable to wear, because I would have added a whole bunch of blocking just for the sake of being able to put on an Ulticlip that the user never tries. But modularity for marketing purposes is baloney, I think. All kinds of things. There are lots of buzzwords in our community. Tactical is one of the biggest ones. When I see the word tactical, I start to go a little bit cross-eyed, because 9 times out of 10, it's there for no reason. It's there just for marketing. It's there just for buzz. And the thing being sold doesn't have any uniquely tactical application. Most people who use it in marketing, if you ask them to define what tactical means, they can't define it. Not everything that gets used by a SWAT team or a Navy SEAL is automatically tactical. Like, Navy SEALs wear socks. Those aren't tactical socks. They're just socks. And so I like modularity. I build it in when it suits my purposes. I never pursue it as an end goal in itself. Nobody wins the game just because theirs is the most modular thing on the market. The performance of the thing is much more important than dynamic is another one. This is like, I'm going to go over, I should totally, guys, 2017, Henry Holsters is releasing a 3 DVD set called The Art of the Dynamic Buffing Wheel. The Art of the Dynamic Buffing Wheel. You heard it here first. I'm partnering up with I always want to call them Panteo, but they pronounce their name Panteo. Panteo Productions to do The Art of the Dynamic Buffing Wheel. One of the most modular holsters out there suffers due to modularity. Okay. Modularity can induce structural problems into a design. Modularity can cause you to weaken your design for the sake of giving it more attachment points, for the sake of changing its profile so it has more options. I'm a big fan on appendix holsters of making the material below the trigger guard as minimal as possible. I could probably get away with I could easily get away with a single eyelet, because my holsters are non-adjustable retention. My light-bearing holsters are adjustable retention, but my non-light-bearing Glock holsters are non-adjustable. I could easily get away with a single eyelet. The only reason I have 2 below the trigger guard is for compatibility with wings like the RCS VG2 and the one that I'm designing and I'm going to release eventually. If I reduced it down to 1 eyelet, I would gain a little bit smaller profile. The user might gain a little bit more comfort, but I would sacrifice the opportunity to add any kind of concealment enhancing accessory there. So I leave that one in place. But I've seen some holsters that have way too much material, where there are, there's a retention screw, and then below that there's 3 eyelets all the way down, even with the muzzle, so that they can offer a bunch of different strut ride heights. Guys, unnecessary. Okay? And the end user pays for it by having that bottom corner where that lowest eyelet is poke them on the inside of the thigh all the time when they're wearing that holster. I'm a big believer in making holsters as small as they can be while still providing the number of attachment options and variations that you need it to have. I didn't even used to offer adjustable cant or ride height. My appendix holsters now have both, but they only have 2 ride height settings and then a straight drop and 1 cant option. I don't do slots on mine. I don't do lots and lots of little holes. I'm not trying to give the person a dozen different cant options. No. There was a company that made hybrids years ago. And their hybrid was essentially a round piece of leather, about the size of a basketball, with a Kydex scabbard riveted to it. Now that I think about this, I haven't seen these guys in a long time, and they may not even be around anymore. In which case I'd say, good, it was junk and they should go out of business. But this, one of their claims to fame, one of their marketing points was how their holster had like more than 300 different cant and ride height variations. 98% of which were absolutely useless. They had a big circle leather backer, and they had like 2 or 3 rows of holes wrapping the entire bottom edge. So you could put both your struts like side by side at the very bottom, so low that almost the entire gun rides above the belt line. Like, okay, mathematically, yes, that's one of your cant and ride height options. Realistically, that's worthless. But they really hyped up, we have all this variability, all this adjustability, and the adjustability was worthless. It didn't do anything. And the guy was hand punching all those holes, which meant he was adding, I don't know how much time on every holster. Maybe he wasn't. I hope he was having them die clicked eventually, because there were like 50 holes in that stupid thing. But that was an example of just ridiculous, just foolish, worthless attempts at buzz marketing showing how many variations, how user adjustable, and you could also attach other stuff. You could attach a magazine caddy, you could attach a knife sheath. Crap. Just junk. So that kind of stuff I have no use for. Unnecessary modularity, unnecessary user adjustability, just clutters things up. For those of you who have joined since I started the feed and didn't see this announcement already, I am giving away a 1911 5-inch railed HTPE mold. I'll be drawing names from among those guys who share the feed. So if you're here watching and you want to be entered in to win the mold, if you're a holster maker, please share the feed, and I will be pulling all those names later tonight and drawing a name out of a hat and then sending a free mold off to whoever won. Ta-da. So share the feed. Appreciate that. Holster applications, mold applications. I had a discussion last night with a holster maker who was inquiring about a custom mold design he wanted to get a price from me on. And the basic idea was he wanted a mold designed that had interchangeable sections, a modular mold system. And he wanted it to be able to be configured a duty holster with active retention with a bail system. And he wanted it to be able to set it up for right or left-handed duty carry with or without a light. So he wanted an entire modular light channel option that could go alongside the gun and make the holster light-bearing. And that would allow him to swap out which light was being used with the whole thing. And so we could set it up for, left-handed with a TLR1 or right-handed with an APL. And what I tried to point out to him is that it's not worth it. When we're talking about holster molds, I'm a big fan of monolithic molds. Okay? This is a monolithic mold. It's all one piece. The reason I like monolithic molds is these two halves are spaced side to side, and they're aligned muzzle, bore line to bore line, and they're aligned muzzle to muzzle in CAD, numerically exactly on the money. Then when they're machined, they're in that orientation all the time, and they're not going to shift. This was the big problem when I first started using split molds years ago and was hand building mine by cutting up blue guns is that the process of laying them out and lining them up was always time consuming, and there was a certain amount of imprecision that was unable to be eliminated. No matter how carefully I laid them out, when I tightened down the screws that held my two mold halves together, inevitably there was a tiny amount of shifting, and they were never 100%. They were close, they were very usable, but they were never 100%. And if I tried to make multiple, if I needed to make 4 Glock 19 molds, identical molds for inside the waistband holsters, because I had a big run of holsters to make, those 4 molds would always be different. There would be no way for me to hand build 4 identical molds. Well, if you do these in CAD, if I cut a dozen copies of this mold, they're identical. They're exactly the same. And that's huge. If you're trying to speed up production and you have a design where all the blocking, all the attachment points, everything is built in and marked into a single solid body mold so that nothing can shift, nothing will pull off. You don't have to worry about tape or epoxy or water weld failing. You don't have to worry about screws pulling out or pins shifting. Like, it's done. That's it. It's all there. Then you can run that mold really hard, really aggressive, and you can run it over and over and over and over again, and it's not going to change. It's going to be stable. So if you built a complicated modular mold system, it would be difficult to make sure that when you assembled it, that all the parts fit super precisely so that they could not shift at all. If you're going to machine all the mating surfaces so that when the part is all locked together and fastened together, it's rock solid, that's going to be difficult to machine. It's going to be complicated to set up. And then there's always going to be the potential for the user accidentally assembling it incorrectly, not fully assembling it, like maybe they go to put it together and they get some dust or some chips or some junk in between 2 pieces, and they go to crank it down and it's not quite right because some junk got in there, or they forget to put a screw in and part of the mold comes apart in process and gets damaged. There are a whole bunch of reasons why that might not work well, but if you go with monolithic molds, you never have changeover. You just swap molds out. So if I wanted to make a right-handed Glock 17 with TLR1 outside the waistband, and I wanted to make a left-handed version, if I design those as 2 completely separate molds, I don't mess with any modular interchangeable parts, I don't screw around with any of that, not only do I have durable, consistent molds for both sides that I don't have to worry about monitoring them to make sure the parts are always assembled correctly and that nothing has changed, but also, and this is big, I have 2 molds where the modular setup gives me 1. It gives me 1 that can be any one of different setups, but I only get 1 at a time. So if I had 4 molds, if I had, right and left-handed with a TLR1, without a TLR1, if I had 4 molds, I could conceivably use a Swift press. I might have to make a bigger one, but I could conceivably use a Swift press to press all 4 molds at the same time. That's where you'll really get speed. Not primarily through modularity, but through multiplicity, getting more copies of the mold in each cycle. Okay? It's like baking pizzas. If you've got a big oven and you can put 4 pizzas at a time in it and you're only putting 1 in, turning the temperature up so you can cook that 1 pizza faster makes sense, but it makes more sense even if it takes longer to cook all 4, to put 4 in at a time and get 4 pizzas at once. So, hey Jed, you just joined Sidearm Solutions. If you share this feed, you'll be entered into the drawing to win this free Pistol Forms 1911 5-inch railed HTPE mold. It has a very, very small cosmetic blem. That's why I hung on to it and didn't send it off to Conrad, and I'm giving it away. So, share the feed, and you'll be entered in for the drawing. So, I don't market modularity as a big feature of my holsters. When I'm designing my own molds, I'm not going for modularity in my molds. Yeah, I should use pizza more often in my examples. I think pizza really gets around the, well, I'm wasting plastic. No, just Just think about pizza. Let's talk about pizza, okay? Actually, no, I'll talk about pizza for a second, okay? Guys who are worried about throwing away Kydex treat it as though they were throwing away finished slices of pizza, when in reality, all they're throwing away is small off-cut pieces of raw dough. Nobody's buying the dough. The dough isn't worth money. And the big difference is the pizza dough, you can collect all the scraps, you can re-roll it and make a new pizza. Okay? The Kydex, you can't do that. When you've got the small scraps, they're small scraps, and you can hang on to them and make chapstick carriers or Bic lighter holders, or you can make like little plastic toothpicks or little shivs you can hide behind your ear and like get somebody with. I don't know, whatever you want to make. Tactical bacon pizza. Yeah, something. But guys obsess over wasting Kydex, and it's just dough. It's just dough. It doesn't matter. You haven't put the toppings on. You haven't put the sauce and cheese on. You haven't put all the labor in. You haven't baked it. You haven't sliced it. You haven't packaged it. It's not saleable. It's just raw material. It's just raw dough. If it falls on the floor and it's gone, whatever. So that's my take on pizza analogies for material waste. Holster and mold applications. I think underinformed or uninformed end users overvalue modularity. That guys think, well, you know, if I ever change my mind down the road, the system is modular and I can do this or do that with it. Yeah, Mike, I want pizza now too, and I didn't even eat dinner that long ago. But the reality is that most things that I've bought, and I'm a tinkerer, I like taking things apart, I like playing around with them, I like changing them up. Most things that I've bought that are modular, I don't mess with that much. And on firearms, I want as few moving parts as possible. Okay? Sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze. I value simplicity and durability over modularity always. I would rather have the parts never break than have them break and it be okay because they're easy to fix because the system is modular. Does that make sense? I really want to build for durability. I don't want to have features and shapes molded into my holster or a cut profile that increases the chance the holster will crack. I know there are still some holster makers who do this. I'm not a fan of it. Where some guys like to cut really hard, really tight 90 corners or even acute angles like decorative sort of sizzle, like flashy, angly stuff. Yeah, Rick, you're going to have to watch tomorrow. But if you share it now while it's live, you will be entered into the drawing to win this Pistol Forms 5-inch railed 1911 HDPE mold. If you wait till tomorrow, you miss the drawing. I'm doing the drawing tonight. So share it. And I think so far we've got under a dozen shares because you people are lame. No, not really. Thank you for sharing, those of you who shared. But your odds are good. So share the feed, and you'll have a chance to win this cool mold. I made some holsters off another one. I had a couple of Blem ones. I made some holsters for a Kimber for a friend of mine off this mold last week. And on a non-railed Kimber, the fit was surprisingly good. So I was thankful. I wasn't confident that the Kimber was necessarily going to fit, but nope, over 20. Sweet. I've been missing some alerts that have been scrolling by then. Over 20 shares. The most shares I've ever gotten. I should give away stuff every time. Next time it'll be pizza, but it'll ship USPS priority, so it'll be cold by the time it gets to you. So, those are my thoughts on modularity. Tooltip, drill driver sets. I have 3 sets of these 12-volt Hitachi drill drivers. So I've got 3 of the impact drivers and 3 of the drills kicking around my shop. That way I never have to look too far to find one, and I can leave them set up with a bunch of different things. So I've got one for Phillips, I've got one set up with Torx, I've got one set up with a couple different drill bit sizes that I use commonly, and I don't have to constantly be changing. I just set one down, pick up the next one, and go, which is really nice. There was something else I was going to say about modularity. I've been walking around the shop looking for modular things. Multiple shares for multiple entries. No, just one. I mean, feel free, share multiples, but you'll just get one entry. Otherwise, it'll complicate my life. What else did I see that was modular around the shop? Oh, I was looking at GoPro mounts, because I have a GoPro Hero 5. And that's an example of good modularity. If the because the GoPro has a basic camera case that locks around the camera, and then there are dozens of different kinds of attachment bases. You can do adhesive ones for flat surfaces, for curved surfaces. There's a suction cup one. There are magnetic ones. There are ones that clip into MOLLE webbing. You can put ones on a traditional tripod with a 1/4-20 bolt. You can put them on a selfie stick. Don't do that. Don't put it on a selfie stick. You can put helmet mounts, chest rig mounts, handlebar mounts for your bike. You can mount it on a dog collar. You can mount it on a headband. You can do all kinds of stuff. For GoPro, that modularity really is a driving feature behind the sales of their product, because they're making something and then handing it to their end users and saying, go find crazy things to do with this. Stick this on your kayak and go do something outrageous. You know, put this GoPro camera on your shoe and then leap off a skyscraper with a parachute on, hopefully. And so the modularity of the mounting system is a critical feature for them to sell. If their system was incredibly proprietary and they sued anybody else who designed an alternative mount that could interface with their system, people would not buy GoPro as much. I think they'd still be in the market, but not nearly as much. And then, switching topics, I got involved in a comment thread on one of the Holster Facebook pages today, and it's a topic that comes up often. And it is the topic of making fun of holster companies that are not part of the group and that are making garbage products. Using Kydex belt clips out of .08, not using injection molded hardware, not vacuum forming, not even really foam pressing, hand forming. And all the holster makers are looking at that stuff going, wow, that looks horrible. That stuff is terrible. You know? And yet, that company, or those companies that are in that kind of product range and that kind of price point, sub $35, yeah, Mike, that's one of them. Those companies are selling a lot of holsters. Yeah, it was, Conrad, it was a non-railed 4-inch Kimber. It worked. It worked well. Nice click. I tweaked it a little bit down by the rail and down by the muzzle. I had to add my concealment kit and some other blocking and things. I think adding the concealment wedge meant that there got to be a tiny bit of wobble if you pushed on the gun in the holster, because down by the muzzle on the 4-inch on one side where the concealment kick was, there wasn't a hard stop. You could leverage it a little bit that direction. But overall, the holsters were very nice. The market decides what's going to sell. People who are in the $25 to $35 holster bracket, and that's what they want to buy, and that's the most that they'll spend, that's a legitimate market need. That's a legitimate demographic to sell to. That is, that's reality. Those companies, like Uncle Mike's, sells lots and lots and lots of holsters. Uncle Mike's is a big company, and they make a lot of money. They make more holsters and sell more holsters than most other holster any holster companies that I talk to, all of us, all rolled together, combined, Uncle Mike sells more than all of us. Hands down. we can complain about how bad Uncle Mike's designs are and how they're floppy and they're garbage all day, but people still buy them. And for a lot of people, Uncle Mike's are workable, which is just kind of crazy. Sometimes, Jeremy Gibbs pointed this out, sometimes a poorly made product will break. If the company has a warranty and they stand behind it and they replace those broken products, then those customers will probably stick around. If they don't honor their warranty, then they'll probably lose those customers. But the idea that the customer is wrong to buy something that you don't think is good is itself wrong. The customer can buy whatever they want. The customer is not always right. The customer doesn't get to call the shots about what my company makes and what my company sells. But the customer is not wrong for buying what they want and spending the amount of money they want on it. I might think they were foolish, but I can't say the market shouldn't be that way. If the company is getting sales, if the product is moving, if consumers are buying it, that's reality. I don't get to change reality because I don't like the product, or I think the customers are dumb for buying it. So, little jag on that. I'm getting sick of seeing guys complaining about On Your 6. It crops up all the time. And part of the reason it crops up all the time is because On Your 6 has a really aggressive and seemingly pretty effective Facebook marketing campaign. You're welcome, Rick. Thanks for hanging out. And so a lot of holster makers are seeing On Your 6 Designs Facebook ads in their feed and going, oh, every time I see these guys, I hate their stuff and their stuff is terrible. And then they get together with their other holster maker friends online and complain about it. Unproductive. Doesn't help. You may have the opportunity to convince. Todd says, we're currently at a gun show. There are 6 holster companies selling under $40. We're at $55 and up. We're still selling each day. We just educate about what is needed. Yeah, a side-by-side comparison. Uneducated consumers don't know the difference, and you may find the education pays off and you're able to get the sales by upselling them on the quality of the hardware, the quality of the molding, the consistency of the part. Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned it, Tom. I was going to go there in a minute. I think a lot of companies that complain about On Your 6 wouldn't want On Your 6's customers if On Your 6 suddenly went out of business. You know why? Those customers want to spend $35 on a holster. And if On Your 6 went out of business and all those customers were just back in the customer pool with no brand loyalty to go after, and they started shopping around at your company, you might go crazy. The stuff I make, like, my holsters are $75 and up. I'm not, you can buy 2 On Your 6 holsters for what mine costs and still go out and hit Taco Bell with a vengeance and have change left over. I'm just not going after the same clients that they're going after. I'm not trying to sell to the same people. I'm not trying to sell in the same places. I'm just not trying to sell the same thing. And so their success doesn't threaten me because we're not doing the same thing. If I was competing at their price point and I was advertising in the same spaces and I was trying to get the same customers that they're getting, then yeah, we'd be legit competitors and their success and mine would be directly head-to-head. But they're not. I'm not in their space. They're not in my space. So, yeah, those customers might leave On Your 6 and go buy Uncle Mike's. Or they might go buy Spider Concealment, which is crushing it in the cheap holster market. Sorry, the value holster market. So that's that. I got to go run some molds for Tom Kelly from Dark Star Gear, who's been hanging out patiently, watching me make this live stream go longer and longer when he knows that as soon as I'm done, his molds are going to start getting cut again. So I'll hop on that, Tom. Thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate all of you who shared the feed. I will go through tonight and go through the list of shares, put some names down, randomly pick one out as randomly as I can. Maybe I'll have my wife or maybe I'll have one of my kids pick it. And then I will post up a comment letting you know who won and contact that person via Facebook message to make sure I get their shipping address and send them that mold out. I will hopefully get in 2 more Facebook Live feeds before Christmas. Christmas vacation is going to be pretty busy. I've got some things that I've got to get dialed in, some machined metal parts I've got to get done before SHOT Show. And so, depending on how the first part of this next week goes, I may just sort of drop off the radar for a few weeks. We'll see. 2017, it's got some big things coming. I'm really excited about it. A lot of doors are open. Lots of new kinds of products and things can be made. I am super excited to see what the next year of business will bring for my company, for your guys' company, what it's going to mean in the holster field generally, what new kinds of forming methods are going to come into the market, what the wider adoption of CNC is going to mean as more and more guys are getting into X-carves and Shapokos and small desktop routers and getting their feet wet on that. I think we're going to see a second wave of CNC guys make the leap into larger machines, more like what Clark and Anthony Booth and Conrad and myself are using. Although I think probably this few guys are going to make the jump into full-out VMCs like Conrad and I have, because suckers are expensive. But a lot of companies are getting into CNC. A lot of guys are starting to make their own molds. The mold industry is changing. I think some of the big gun companies are starting to pay more attention to us. That can be good and that can be bad. I think we might see some companies aggressively move in the right direction and try to partner with and co-opt some of the more up-and-coming makers. I also think we'll probably see some more cease and desist letters in the next year as these small holster companies become more successful and end up on the bigger guys' radar. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure 2017 won't be boring. I am going to be at SHOT Show 2017. If you're going to go, Michael James, I have a couple CNCs. My small router is a K2 2626 LT. My large one is a Brother Speedio 700 mil. So I've got those two. I use the K2 router for trimming parts. I use the mill for mold making primarily, but also for machined metal parts and trimming Kydex parts. But the little router isn't good for mold making, at least not compared to the mill that I have. So I don't make molds on it anymore. So that's what I've got. I'm looking at getting a bigger CNC router, because I'd like to be able to install a larger number of more permanent fixtures and not have to take them on and off and on and off. So basically have, a dozen trimming stations on the machine that are always in the same place every time, and I just call them up with work coordinates. That would be awesome. My current little router doesn't have enough space for all that jazz. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting year. 2016 has been amazing. Even with the loss of some important people, some great musicians, Harambe, it's been quite a year. 2017 is going to be something interesting. I'm super excited about it. So, hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday night, and hopefully you'll tune in next week when I do my next Facebook Live broadcast. I will get off here as usual. I will go through all the comments, and if there was anything that came through that I did not answer in the course of the video, I will answer it in text. Thank you guys very much for spending your time with me, and once I've done the drawing, I will post up in the comments feed who won the mold. So, have a great night. See you next time.